Okay, so when you hear the Republican Party, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably things like, limited government, lower taxes, individual liberty. But what if I told you that the party of Abraham Lincoln was actually founded on the exact opposite idea? A powerful, active national government. Yeah, it's a complete 180-degree turn, and we're about to break down exactly how that happened. And this, right here, lays out the central puzzle perfectly. On one side, you've got a founding idea, a strong national government to create order and build up the American economy. On the other, the modern idea, a limited government to protect individual liberty. I mean, these two visions feel like they belong to totally different political parties, right? But they don't. They're both Republican. So the big question is, how on earth do you get from one to the other? To figure this out, we have to go way back to the very beginning. So let's dive into Chapter 1, the Party of Lincoln. A party that was founded not so much on individual freedom, but on establishing order over anarchy. The Republican Party was really forged in the fire of a national crisis. It all started in 1854, created specifically to stop the expansion of slavery. Just 6 years later, a former Whig named Abraham Lincoln becomes the first Republican president. But here's the key. The Civil War is what truly cemented the party's identity. Think about it. To keep the nation from literally falling apart, the federal government had to be strong. It had to be decisive and interventionist. It was a matter of national survival. So this all leads to the party's original philosophy, which was called nationalism. And back then, that word meant something really specific. It wasn't just about waving a flag. It was a core political belief that the central government was a positive force. Its job was to bring order out of anarchy, to build up the economy with big projects like railroads, and to basically strengthen the entire American Union. For almost 100 years, this was the bedrock of the Republican Party. But, of course, things change. As we head into the 20th century, that bedrock starts to show some serious cracks. The party finds itself in a new battle. This time, it wasn't against another part of the country. It was a battle for its own soul. This is the story of the progressive split. Just listen to this. These are the words of one of the most iconic Republicans ever, Theodore Roosevelt. He's arguing that to fight the massive power of giant corporations, you needed an even more powerful national government to step in. This was really the peak of that original Republican idea, using federal power as a tool for good. But it was also a huge warning sign of the deep division that was coming. And boom, this is what happens in 1912. This chart tells the whole story. Roosevelt decides to run for president again, but he does it with his own progressive party. Now look at the numbers. Roosevelt and the official Republican candidate, Taft, together pulled in over 50% of the vote. But because they split that vote, they basically handed the presidency to the Democrat, Woodrow Wilson, who won with just under 42%. This one election was a massive turning point that started pushing the Republican Party away from those activist roots. So, the progressive split definitely weakened the party's old-school nationalist wing. But the next shock to the system, well, it would change things for good. We're talking about Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. Its massive expansion of government sparked a huge counter-reaction, and out of that reaction, a completely new Republican identity was forged. And this is where the new core belief really takes hold. The central fight, the way the party saw the world, was no longer order versus anarchy. It became the individual versus the state. All of a sudden, the federal government wasn't the solution anymore. In fact, it was now seen as a potential threat, a threat to liberty, to economic freedom, and to your own personal initiative. This idea became the new soul of the Republican Party. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The party that used immense federal power to win the Civil War and build the nation was now the party that saw that very same power as a fundamental danger. The reversal was profound, and it was total. But an idea is one thing. It's not enough. You have to build it into a real political movement. And that brings us to our next chapter, the Reagan Revolution and the rise of what we now call modern conservatism. This revolution didn't just happen overnight. Not at all. It was a process that took decades. The first real spark came in 1964 with Barry Goldwater's presidential run. Now, he lost, badly, but his unapologetically conservative message lit a fire under a whole new movement. Through the 70s, that movement built a really powerful coalition, bringing together economic conservatives, social conservatives, and foreign policy hawks. And it all came together in 1980 with the Reagan landslide, signaling a major shift to the right in American politics. And here you have it. This is maybe the most famous line from the Reagan presidency, and it is the ultimate summary of the party's incredible transformation. Just compare this to what Teddy Roosevelt said earlier. It's like the perfect bookend, right? It marks the final stop on that 180-degree turn. But of course, history never really stops, does it? As the party moved into the 21st century, the very same coalition that Reagan had built, which was once so unified, well, it started to show some signs of stress. New divisions started to pop up. A huge sign of this stress was the explosion of the Tea Party movement right after the 2008 election. It was fueled by opposition to things like the bank bailouts and the Affordable Care Act. This movement was all about limited government, lower taxes, and the national debt. But what really made it different was its willingness to challenge established Republicans in their own primaries. It created this whole new conservative versus conservative fight right inside the party. This table really helps us see what the modern Republican coalition looks like. You've still got those core groups from the Reagan years, the economic conservatives, the social conservatives, the foreign policy hawks. But now you've got this very distinct Tea Party, or you might call it an anti-establishment faction. And you can start to see where the tensions might come from. For instance, how do economic conservatives, who are focused on low taxes and cutting the debt, get on the same page with foreign policy conservatives who want a very strong and very expensive military? Managing these different groups has become the new big challenge. So we've gone from the party of big government to the party of small government, and now to a party that's navigating all these new internal fractures. It seems like the one constant in the Republican Party's entire history is change, is evolution. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. What's next?